To continue the debate, I call upon James Cleverly, Member of Parliament, to continue the case for proposition.
Mr. President, members of the committee, members of the union, thank you for inviting me. They always say never start a speech with an apology, so I'm going to have to apologise for starting a speech with an apology and then apologise for that apology. My apology, when I'm not a politician, I am a member of the Reserve Forces. I'm an officer in the Royal Regiment of Artillery. And when I saw the title of tonight's debate, my mind went to the American national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, which I sung in the chamber of the House of Commons against standing orders. And the verse that I sung made reference to my regiment's role in attacking America. The rocket troop of the Royal Horse Artillery fired the rockets which provided the red glare and bombs bursting in air. Sorry to the Americans in the room for burning down your building. It was also mentioned by the honourable gentleman, the international officer, that I did indeed call Simon Hughes a dick. That is true. That is true. And funnily enough, about 4 or 5 days after calling him that, I bumped into him at an event, and that was awkward. So I thought, well, the right thing to do is to apologise. So I went up to him and I apologised, and he was so charming and so gracious and so elegant, I realised that of the two of us, the dick standing there was in fact me. So a number of the speakers have made reference to the Cold War, which I'm 52, I think, I lose track. And of course that was a seminal moment, and particularly the end of the Cold War. I joined the army in 1989, and shortly afterwards the Berlin Wall came down and the Cold War was over. Now, I don't take full personal credit for that. I'm just saying I think it's just too much of a coincidence to ignore that option. But of course, that was a time when leadership roles seemed really simple. And one of the things that struck me about this debate, and I intend to try and break out of this as a framework, is that the debate seems to have constrained itself on both sides by looking at America purely through the political and governmental prism. And I think that is a mistake. Our first speaker mentioned de Tocqueville, who wrote those seminal pair of works on America and democracy in 34. Yes, exactly. 1835 and 1840, if I got is that right? Yes. Still got it for the moment. And he said that America had the appearance of chaos, and I paraphrase because I didn't actually read either of the books. He said America has the appearance of chaos, but built actually on very firm foundations. And I thought, in terms of political philosophers, that was a really important point to make. But there was another great philosopher, an American philosopher, who said, with great power comes great responsibility. Peter Parker's uncle. Great man. And actually, so we look at where great power resides. And of course, whilst it doesn't reside exclusively in the United States of America, if we think across a number of areas where power manifests itself, we do see a real clustering effect in the United States. So, of course, economically, we know the United States of America is an economic powerhouse. Culturally, America is an absolute powerhouse. Technologically, we mentioned the liberating effect in many parts of the world that Twitter and Facebook emanating from America, so technologically. And, of course, militarily, although the UK is a proud member of NATO and one of the few members of NATO that actually makes its 2% contribution, our contribution is itself eclipsed by the contribution made by the United States of America. So they are a great power. And, as I say, with great power does come great responsibility. We should hold them. We should hold them to that responsibility. One of the other points that was made, and I paraphrase someone who spoke more recently on the subject of choices, because really, as with all debates, this is about a choice. And this indeed was Tony Blair, and he said something which I agree with. You might want to write that down, because I tell you, it does not happen often. And he said, and he was talking about political parties and governments, he said, between elections, people judge governments against a perfect ideal of a government. And at election time, they judge the government against the alternative. And I think if we are going to discuss who we look to for leadership, it is legitimate that we ask ourselves who the alternatives might be. And we've had a really good discussion on who the alternatives might be. His Excellency, the Russian ambassador, suggested that Russia, China would obviously play a role as one of those as one of those alternatives. He made an excellent point when he highlighted the faults, flaws, and difficulties of democracy. I asked myself, how the hell would he know? But that would be perhaps unfair. And the first speaker opposing the motion set up a yardstick, set up a benchmark against which we should judge America. And as he went through the things that we should think about when we judge whether or not a country is worthy of being looked to for leadership, he set the bar so high, I cannot envisage any country or multilateral organization could possibly be held to that standard. So we're not talking about perfection. The question in front of us is not, is America perfect? Because of course the answer to that would be a unanimous no. So we have to go back to the exam question. And it's been a long time since I sat any exams, and a very, very long time since I sat any exams successfully. But we go back to the exam question, that this House would still look to the United States for global leadership. And I think, when I was composing this final part of my speech, I hadn't actually fully read the order paper in front of us. Now, there's a quote within the order paper which I think probably encapsulates better what I was about to say, but nevertheless, I'm going to go with my cat-candid version of this. The final speaker this evening is an officer in the Royal Naval Reserve, and I commend him and all of you who have, in whatever role you have played, contributed to your societies. It is an incredibly important thing to do. And he will know, and if he doesn't know, he will learn this real quick, that you stand a bit straighter and you behave a bit better and you conduct yourself more elegantly when you think someone is watching. And this question invites us to watch the United States of America, to look at, not just to, but look at the United States of America. There is a tendency, and it has been mentioned by a number of speakers in one way or another, there has been, in America's history, a tendency to drift towards isolationism. And there have been a number of conflicts in the 20th century, both hot conflicts, First, Second World Wars, and indeed the Cold War, where the United States could have chosen a path of isolationism. And had they done so, it would have been far from certain that we would have defeated fascism or that we would have liberated people in Eastern Europe from communism. Had America drifted towards that point of isolation, we would all be less safe, less wealthy, less healthy. So I say, let's look to the US for global leadership. And in casting our gaze towards them, let's encourage them. No, let's force them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So not for their interest, not for some purely academic reason, but for our own global self-interest. Let us ensure that the US is the best version of the US that it can be. And the best way of doing that is voting with the motion and looking to America to provide the global leadership that it can and should provide. Thank you.